everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Inside the Zone with Mateo. Another edition of Inside the NFL here on Inside the Zone with Mateo. So glad you guys are choosing to spend the next couple minutes here of your day with me here on the show. For those who do not know, my name is Mateo, and Inside the NFL is basically our NFL podcast within our channel here on basically YouTube here, also on Spotify. So if you want more audio content, like you can just listen in the gym or listen in the car, Spotify's the way to go because that's just literally just normally just the audio. I think actually they've been taking videos so on Spotify now, but I think I just upload the audio over there. So if you want just the audio form, go ahead and follow me over there on Spotify. But here, if you haven't already, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button here on YouTube as we just hit over 150 subscribers. Thank you guys so much. We're working our way up. 200 subscribers is our next goal, and then ultimately, hopefully, 500 and then 1,000. But that's a long time from now. And now let's get to the content. Inside the NFL, our NFL podcast normally comes to you every single week during the NFL season. Now, we're in the off season, so that we've only had really one other episode kind of right at the start of free agency, breaking down kind of the latest free agency stuff. All that Max Crosby stuff was crazy. But now, this, is going to be kind of the kickoff. They're going to be the kickoff. We're going to have this one. This is going to probably be one of the final Inside the NFL episodes of the offseason. And then the next time I'm going to be seeing you on this exact podcast for the NFL talk is most likely going to be preparation for week one, unless some crazy stories pop out. But anyway, yeah, every single week during the NFL season, we're on here doing the same thing, talking about the football, the sport of football that we all love. So without further ado, let's get into Mateo's show, batting order, presented by To Be Determined. If you'd like to sponsor this segment, which we use across all our podcasts here on the channel, send me a DM on X, or you could also send me an email. Or also, if you want to check out my website, there's a contact form in my website, which is also linked in the description of this video. So without further ado, Mateo's show, batting order. We're not going to do a lot of these things. I just want to kind of introduce to you the batting order. We keep the same batting order for every single NFL episode, which is basically we have three major things that happen every week during the NFL season. 5 things I learned from the last week of the NFL. I make my predictions, and then I update my power rankings. We're mostly just going to focus on power rankings today because there's not been any games that's played. I've really talked about free agency in general, but I will give you guys a quick overview of what's happened in free agency, but also the things, the sandwiches, the pieces of bread in the sandwich on the batting order, the welcome back, the coming up. We're in the welcome back right here because we haven't really had a full Inside the NFL show in a long time. It's been a lot of Wilds, it's been a lot of Timberwolves, a little bit of Twins, and it's going to stay that way for the next couple months here, but I just wanted to make sure we get an NFL episode out, and this is what we're doing today, and then we'll talk about what's coming up the rest of the channel at the end of the episode. Let me stop yapping, and now let's get into our first thing in our batting order. It's what the heck I learned from last week. We normally do 5 things I learned from last week of the NFL. It's normally going to look like this. It's going to, say the first thing I learned is going to be whatever. There's going to be a picture relating to them on the right for my YouTube audience. I'm going to talk about free agency was crazy, but I just want to show you guys something. And this is how it's going to work. Then we would go to second thing I learned, third thing I learned, fourth thing I learned, and then the fifth and final thing I learned. And then we would get over to our picks, which is basically, yes, my weekly NFL picks, which, yes, I forgot to put my all-time record here. We've only been doing this podcast for about a one football season. So I'll put it up there, and then we keep track of our stats throughout the season, how well I did last week, talk about what games we have to predict, give you my thoughts on the games if I didn't address them in the 5 things I learned. Teams on a bye, obviously, we would address that as well. Then we would go to the power ranking, and that's going to be the main focus of this episode. But let's go back over here to the first thing I learned, because that's just, it's kind of an introduction to those because we've gotten a lot of new subscribers since we ended the Inside the NFL shows. We do 18 to 20 weeks, from week 1 to the Super Bowl, every single Thursday is normally our episodes, but this is just kind of an introduction. But yes, free agency was crazy. Let's start talking a little bit about free agency, and then we will get to my power rankings, which, by the way, yes, our power rankings are going to be on. If you read kind of the whole title or something, teams, we're about a month away from the draft. So that's where we're going to power rank the teams based off of kind of free agency and their teams on paper. But the top free agents by position, this is from PFF. We're going to just kind of scroll down the names, scroll down the positions, and give you my quick, honest thoughts on some of these signings. Quarterback, there weren't major quarterbacks signed. I mean, there were a couple bigger names, like names that we wanted to see in different teams, but no big names like a Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow or anything like that. Kyler Murray, though, did sign with my Minnesota Vikings on a league minimum deal. He's also going to be making about $50 million from the Arizona Cardinals. Malik Willis, that was a big news. He's going to the Dolphins, who then basically said, yeah, we're not re-signing or we're releasing Tyreek Hill. We traded away Jalen Waddle. So that team, probably towards the bottom of my power rankings so far. Then what did the Miami Dolphins do with their other quarterback that they had? Well, Tua Tagovailoa got signed on a one-year veteran league minimum as well with the Atlanta Falcons. He and Michael Penix are the quarterbacks in that room because Kirk Cousins signed with the Las Vegas Raiders a couple of days ago for $172 million over the next 5 years. A lot of question marks there, but it's also, kind of, when I was thinking about this, and a lot of people are bringing this up, now you don't have to throw Fernando Mendoza in right away. I think, if he has a good off season, and also just a good training camp, maybe you see him in week 1. But with this big signing, they are paying Kirk Cousins a lot of money, and this is just going to be really interesting to see what they do in the Raiders over there in Las Vegas. If you watched my kind of reaction to day 1 of free agency, you know how high I was on the Raiders. And this is going to be interesting to see. I don't necessarily know exactly where I'm going to put them, number-wise in the power ranking, but this is definitely going to be interesting to talk a little bit about the Raiders once we get to the power rankings. Because in short words, in just really like 5 words or less, I'd say the Raiders are cooking. That's 4 words, and that's all I have to say about the Raiders. We'll talk about them more once we get into the power rankings section. Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers are still free agents. Marcus Mariota got re-signed with the Washington Commanders. Tyler Huntley re-signed with the Baltimore Ravens. Kenny Pickett signed with the Panthers. He'll be Bryce Young's backup. Garoppolo, Tyrod Taylor, still free agents. Gardner Minshew signed with the Arizona Cardinals. Basically, Jacoby Brissett's backup. Going to be interesting to see how that works out. Sam Howell signed with the Dallas Cowboys. He is going to be, or it looks like Dak Prescott's backup quarterback. So that's kind of the gist of the quarterbacks. The running back, there were a lot of running back free agents. Kenneth Walker signed with the Chiefs. That was kind of the major headline. But then Breece Hall was franchise tagged by the New York Jets. Travis Etienne went to his hometown state in Louisiana. He signed a 4-year, $52 million contract with the New Orleans Saints. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Alvin Kamara now. Tyler Algier signed with the Arizona Cardinals. Javonte Williams re-signed with the Cowboys. Najee Harris is still a free agent. J.K. Dobbins re-signed with the Broncos. Rashid White signed with the Washington Commanders. I kind of forgot about that signing. Kenneth Gainwell, though, yes, we do know this one, from Pittsburgh to Tampa Bay for 2 years, $14 million. Brian Robinson is going to play with Bijan Robinson, so chill out, fantasy pickers. If you guys see, B. Robinson, well, double check to make sure it's the right Robinson, because they're both going to be playing in Atlanta. Isaiah Pacheco signs with the Detroit Lions also for a 1 year, basically the league minimum deal. Because I believe there was a trade, because David Montgomery left. A trade with the Houston Texans. So that's kind of their backup running back to Jahmyr Gibbs. So it's going to be interesting. Isaiah Pacheco, I think he did lose a lot of his trade value. He only earning a league minimum deal. He didn't have the best season. He was injured, but we'll see what happens. Joe Mixon, McNichols, Hunt, Mozart, and Chubb are still all free agents. If you take a look, Mixon and Hunt and Mozart and Chubb, even Najee Harris, you go back 4 or 5 years ago, those players were all maybe running back ones on their team. Now they're sitting here without a job. So it's going to be interesting to see if anybody picks them up. On to wide receiver. George Pickens got franchise tagged by the Dallas Cowboys. Alec Pierce got re-signed by the Colts for $116 million over the next 4 years. Stephon Diggs, still a free agent. So is Tyreek Hill, Deebo Samuel, Juwan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, and company. But the big name Mike Evans gets signed by the San Francisco 49ers, 3 years, $60 million. Rashid Shaheed re-signs with the Seattle Seahawks, 3 years, $51 million. Romeo Doubs signs with the New England Patriots for 4 years and $68 million. Wan'Dale Robinson signed with the Titans for $70 million. Kirk signed with the Niners for 1 year, $6 million. Jalen Nailor signed with the Raiders. There's those Raiders again. Former Viking gets signed by the Raiders, so you pair him up with Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk played with Jalen Nailor a little bit, but Jalen Nailor is making $35 million over the next 3 years, and then a bunch of kind of wide receiver 3 and 4s that we just don't really care about. Kendrick Bourne, that's kind of a notable name, I guess, signs with the Cardinals for 2 years, and then Tutu Atwell is going to be, or it looks like is going to be, what's his face? Malik Willis is wide receiver 1 over there in Miami. Him and Jalen Tolbert signed 1-year deals over there in Miami. Moving on to tight ends. Kyle Pitts got franchise tagged by the Atlanta Falcons for 1 year, $15 million. Re-signed by the Philadelphia Eagles for a 1-year deal. That is going to be Dallas Goedert. Same thing for Travis Kelce. So he's not going to retire. He's going to play at least one more season. Maybe it will be his farewell tour. Isaiah Likely stays on the East Coast and signs a 3-year, $40 million contract with the New York Giants. David Njoku still a free agent. Going to be interested to see if anybody picks him up. Cade Otton got re-signed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and not really anything else. Disley, Lewis, Jonnu Smith, all still out there in free agency. Mannertz re-signed with the Giants. I've never heard of him. I thought I'd just say his name because why not? On the offensive line here, any major signings? Braxton Jones got re-signed by the Bears. But other than that, I mean, Rasheed Walker is a 1-year deal. It's nothing crazy here. Still not the best tackle class. Guards, though, Elijah Vera Tucker got signed by the New England Patriots, 3 years, $42 million. Isaac Seumalo got signed by the Cardinals for 3 years as well. So, yeah, definitely a guard-heavier class here. Wyatt Teller signed with the Texans. Ed Ingram resigned with the Texans. So, a lot of things going out over there in the guard play. Zion Johnson got signed by the Browns for almost $50 million for the next 3 seasons. At center, Tyler Linderbaum. There's those Raiders yet again. 3 years, $81 million. And then Connor McGrovern re-signs with the Bills for $52 million over the next 4 years. So, yeah, the center's making some money here. They're definitely a big winner as well. And then we move over, though, to the defensive side of the ball where Trey Hendrickson making the news, signing with the Ravens for $112 million over the next 4 years. Boy Mafe signed with the Bengals for 3 years, $60 million. Jalen Phillips signed with the Panthers for $120 million over the next 4 years. And for the next 4 years, the Washington Commanders are going to be paying Odafe Awe $100 million. Joey Bosa still is a free agent. Khalil Mack did get re-signed by the LA Chargers. Cameron Jordan going to still be a free agent. But yeah, the edge rushers definitely getting their money worth. You got 4 guys making over $60 million with these new signings. 3 over 100, which is absolutely insane. Kwity Paye signed with the Raiders for 3 years and $48 million. And by the way, those Raiders, they still got Max Crosby, which is going to be interesting. Von Miller also still a free agent. Kyle Van Noy a free agent. So a bunch of these older guys definitely starting to regress, as we've seen with the running backs and also with some of these edge rushers. On the interior defensive side, DJ Reader, Calais Campbell, still some veterans still out there on the board. Not really any major signings. The major thing here is some former Vikings for our Viking audience, because we are a Minnesota sports-based podcast across this channel. Jonathan Allen signed with the Bengals for 2 years, and then Javon Hargrave signed with our rival Green Bay Packers for the next 2 years. We had to kind of let them go just to free up a lot of salary, because our salary cap issue, that was a big problem, and that is why I'm so thankful that we were able to get Kyler Murray for $1 million. On the linebacker side here, there were some couple bigger signings here. Leo Chenal signing with the Commanders for 3 years, $24.75 million was big. Nakobe Dean signing with the Raiders, Devin Bush, Devin Lloyd, both getting 3-year deals. Alex Anzalone signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a bigger name. DeMario Davis signing with the Jets, leaving the Saints, so leaving one poor franchise to another. DeMario Davis is going to be making $11 million each year for the next 2 years. Tremaine Edmonds also signs with the Giants. He gets to play with John Harbaugh. Dre Greenlaw signed with the San Francisco 49ers. He's about back over there. And many more are still signing. You got the Quincy Williams signing for the Browns. And just so many more. You also had Cole Holcomb re-sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Over on cornerback side, Jamal Dean signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. A very good signing there. For your Minnesota Vikings, we did sign a corner. We signed James Pierre, I believe, from the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's just kind of what, I said. Jamal Dean signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and James Pierre just kind of, went into my brain because he was connected to the Steelers somehow. Jalen Watson signed with the Rams for 3 years. I believe he he's going to be probably corner number 2 after basically the Rams took both of the Chiefs corners, via trade and free agency because they brought in Trent McDuffie, which is absolutely insane. Asante Samuel re-signed with the Steelers as well. Reek Woolen signed with the Eagles. That's going to be interesting. Travion Diggs still a free agent, and many, many more. Finally, wrapping it up at safety, Brian Cook signed with the Bengals. Cameron Curl re-signed with the Rams. Kevin Byard signed with the New England Patriots. You had Reed Blankenship signed with the Houston Texans. Harrison Smith is still technically a free agent. It looks like he's going to come back to the Vikings on a veteran league minimum as well. Geno Stone signed with the Bills, and that's pretty much it. No more. There's not really any kicker updates that I know of. But anyway, that is kind of this, PFF. Love you. Thank you for putting that together. Appreciate it. But now that's going to kind of basically set it up for, yes, this wonderful thing. If y'all been a part of our Inside the NFL show for a long time or any time last season, it's the power ranking time. We use a tier list to basically do so, and I added a couple tiers. So now we have 8 total tiers, 2 for each little section. So 4 major segments and then 2 kind of divided. The high end of that and the low end of that. So this should be self-explanatory, but for those who can't see it, let me explain. The top 2 tiers, you have Super Bowl favorites and Super Bowl contenders. Basically, the difference here is Super Bowl favorites are kind of the better Super Bowl contending teams, and the Super Bowl contenders are the weaker Super Bowl contending teams, if that makes sense. The next 2, tiers 3 and 4, are 100% in and wild card. Basically, 100% in is basically just saying probably going to make the playoffs, right? And they're the better of those teams. And then wildcard teams are probably going to make the playoffs, but maybe as a wildcard team, and it's going to be close. The next 2 kind of fit it's close category because tiers 5 and 6, you got just missed the playoffs, which is the higher end of the mediocre teams. And then mediocre at best is the low end of that at tier number 6. And then at 7 and 8, you got best of the worst and number 1 pick contention, which is probably very self-explanatory. So without further ado, we are power ranking the NFL teams. As of here is April 7th, 2026. It's kind of we might do one more of these episodes kind of before the season, or actually, no, that will be probably week 1's show, week 1 preview or whatever. So, without further ado, I just rambled for about 20 minutes or something like that. Let's now get into the power rankings. We're going to start down here with the New Orleans Saints. And now the New Orleans Saints, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about every team, but for a team that I want to talk about, I'm going to talk about, and appreciate you guys for watching again. If you haven't already, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. If you like this content, and if you want more content like this, let me know in the comments down below. But the New Orleans Saints coming off a very interesting year. You know what I should be doing? I should have the NFL standings up. Don't know why I don't have it up, but, it is what it is. And I just want to make sure I get these standings right, if you know what I'm saying. If you know what I'm saying, I'm not an old man, but here we go. Let's zoom in a little bit before I share this screen, just so y'all can see it a little better. And boom. Let's do that. There we go. That's much better. Boom. Yes, there we go. Here's the standings for the NFC South as well as a couple other NFC divisions. You have the Panthers, Buccaneers, Falcons, and the Saints. So the Saints did come in last. But overall, this division has been one of the worst divisions in football over the last couple years. However, you can make a case that each of these teams all got better in the offseason, right? With all these signings, the Panthers improved their defense a whole lot. Tampa Bay got, Kenneth Gainwell. They did lose Evans, so that could be interesting, but they also got Alexander Zaloni and company. The Falcons, maybe Tua's going to work out over there. And then the Saints themselves, they got some other good players, Travis Etienne, and they, sure, maybe don't have a quarterback, but Tyler Shuck, I think Tyler Shuck's probably going to be the quarterback for their team unless something crazy happens. He just sounds like it's going to be Tyler Shuck. He played out of his mind the last couple games. I mean, they went real well. They could have made the playoffs in this bad division. They were 2 games out. Like if they would have stolen 1 or 2 more games, if Tyler Shuck would have played 2 more games, I think this team would have made the playoffs just because this division is weak. Do I think they're going to win the division this year? The answer is no, but I do think they can be a competitive team. So while looking at these tiers here, and I got to get a little familiar with these tiers a little bit, right? They're not a Super Bowl favorite, right? We can cross that out. But Super Bowl contender, yeah, they're not that. 100% in, no. Could I see them being a wild card team? I could, but again, the NFC is too loaded that I don't think I can. And I don't think they're the worst of the worst. I think they truly are going to be a mediocre at best, which is in tier number 6 out of 8, which is just kind of getting towards the middle, but a little less than the middle, if you know what I'm saying. So it's 6, right? It's really in the middle. The top 4 tiers are basically the teams that make the playoffs. The bottom 4 are the teams that miss it, if that kind of makes sense. And I'm going to put the New Orleans Saints at mediocre at best just because I think they can have another about 500 season. Maybe that is a 9-8 season. Maybe that's an 8-9. Maybe that's a 6-11. Again, I think that's pretty mediocre. Maybe 6-11 is maybe best of the worst. But I think they're going to be between the 7-9 win total, which has been the average for this division. But I do think this division is going to get better. So I can't say they're going to make the playoffs just because I think that's ultimately going to be for the Carolina Panthers. And let's just put the Panthers right here. I think they're going to be 100% in. I think they're literally one of the best teams in that division right now. They won 8 games last season. I think they win at least 10 games, maybe more. And I just don't see any of these other teams winning more than that. Just because, while each team has gotten better, I just think they haven't improved everything. The major hole here for Tampa Bay, they lost Mike Evans, who has been on their team for ages, for basically almost my entire life. Not my entire life, but almost my entire life. Atlanta, we have no idea how Penix and Tua Tagovailoa are going to play. We don't even know who's the starting quarterback yet. Bijan's probably going to be Bijan. Their defense still has some question marks. And then the Saints I just talked a little bit about. So, this is what we might do. We might go division by division. I kind of like this because it just keeps everything organized. So, to finish this division here, yes, I'm going to put Carolina at 1, just at 100% in, even though I don't think they're as good. Maybe this feels wrong to do. Maybe I put them as a wild card because I think they're going to have a record of a more of a wild card team rather than a clear division win. Do I think they can be a playoff contender? Yes. But maybe I shouldn't be so high on them. But yes, no, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And ultimately, the tiers, these tiers are just to help rank. At the end, it's going to be 1 through 32, and I'll read it at the end, and it will all make sense. And we're not even going to talk about the tiers. We're just going to talk about the numbers they're in, basically. This is just how I do the rankings. So now, Tampa Bay, who lost Mike Evans, it seems like they've always could have. It seemed like the last couple of years, take away the Brady year, but when they've all been, the 8-9s, the 9-8s, right? It just seems like Tampa was always the best. They had the experience. They had the most veterans. But man, Baker Mayfield struggled last year. They lose, what's his face? Mike Evans. Sure, they have Emeka Ibuka. Sure, they have Chris Godwin. I think it's a similar. I think it's going to end up similar than last year here. Three teams were tied for first place, and just because the Panthers beat the Buccaneers and Falcons more times, that's the only reason they made the playoffs. I think it could be something similar. I think it might exactly finish out something like this in order, not record-wise, but in order. Panthers, Buccaneers, Falcons, Saints. I think it's legitimately probably going to be around there, right? So for this, I'm thinking they're just going to make the playoffs. So obviously, not a wild card team. The wild card teams are going to be way better than whoever wins this division. The wild card teams are going to be better than them. But I'm not saying that whoever wins this NFC South division can't upset a team. I still think the Panthers have what it takes. I just need my friend Bryce Young. I need him to prove himself that he can win a playoff game and just play consistent football. But that leaves the final team in this division. That will be, who is the final team? The Atlanta Falcons, which we could talk about forever. We just don't know. And that's going to be so much. And I think mediocre at best fits them the best here just because we don't know. We have no clue who's going to be the starting quarterback, A, and B, how they're going to play. They're both lefties, so that makes the offense a little easier to teach. So you don't have to say, oh, wait, this guy's a righty, this guy's a lefty. You have two lefties. Penix should be able to learn a little bit from Tua. He gets so much disrespect that I don't think he deserves. But I just don't think this team is good enough. I think this division is the weakest division out there in the NFC. And so for those reasons, that's where I'm going to put these teams. So for the Panthers, 100% in, just missed the playoff are going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then mediocre at best is going to be the Falcons and the Saints. I could be generous, but we'll see. We'll see what happens here. This is very early power rankings. But now let's go over to the weakest division, in my opinion, of the AFC. And that's going to be also, actually, we're just going to do the other division. We're just going to do the other division, the other South division, but this time in the AFC. It's the AFC South. You got the Jaguars, you got the Texans, you got the Colts, you got the Titans. That was the order they were in. And the big question is here, the Titans. Are they going to do something? They made a couple moves, not big moves, but interesting moves. But for me here, the Tennessee Titans, they might have a little upside. But other than that, I got to put them, where I think they just belong. Is that number one pick contention? I'm not sure. I keep going back and forth here between best of the worst and number one pick contention. I think they will put together a little something, but I still think it's going to be one of the worst in the league. I think they're going to still be a bottom 5 team and therefore number one pick contention there. The other three teams, though, in this division, are really intriguing. You got the Jaguars, who won 13 games last year. You got the Texans, who won 12 games last year solely due to their defense. And then the incredible collapse of the Indianapolis Colts, I just don't think is going to happen. I think the Colts are going to be better than that. I mean, it's just they lost their quarterback. They re-signed him. They got Alec Pierce. They got JT. They got Tyler Warren. They got a great defense, right? They got Sauce Gardner. A full season of all of this is going to be very interesting. And for these reasons here, I trust, and this is a hot take, I trust Daniel Jones more than I trust Trevor Lawrence. I know that's an extreme hot take. Yes, I do. The Colts right here, they're going to be 100% in. I think they win the division. Okay, that's a really hot take because these other two teams are also really talented. I think the Jaguars, a wild card team, sounds fair. The Texans, I think they just missed the playoffs because I think there's going to be a couple other teams that are ultimately going to outperform them just because I have a big question mark as well on CJ Stroud and just the whole, running back situation. I know they're going to have David Montgomery. I don't know. This is just a really hard thing. And I think the Colts are just so good of a team. It's just the injuries that ultimately killed them. And I think, in a world of no injuries, or in a world of basically they're restarting, or I guess we could say in a world of no injuries from last season, I think the Colts have probably win 14 to 15 games and ultimately win the division. So that's kind of what I'm thinking here. Yes, the Colts are better than the Carolina Panthers. And that's just kind of the list of how I'm going to do this guy so far. So that's a bit about the AFC South. And now we're moving on. Well, let's stay in the AFC today. Let's stay in the AFC and let's do an intriguing division, if you don't say so. if I don't say so myself. We got the AFC East. We got the Patriots at number 1. They made it to the Super Bowl in Drake May's second season. They bring in a couple guys. They do lose Stephon Diggs, but I think they're going to find somebody, maybe cough, cough, A.J. Brown. Buffalo Bills, they got themselves an interesting wide receiver in DJ Moore. They built their new stadium. Josh Allen's ready. He wants to compete. He's a father. He's excited. Miami, they're a mess, and the Jets are a mess. This division might be the worst division in the AFC just because the Dolphins and the Jets, I believe, are going to be so bad. So let's start with the two bad teams. The Jets, yeah, they're number 1 pick contention. I don't care if you bring in Demario Davis. I don't care if you bring in any of these defenders. Your offense still is going to be interesting. I don't know who the heck your quarterback is going to be. Now, I will say this. If they snatch Ty Simpson round 2, because I don't think they're going to take him with round 1, but if they get him round 2, and he is an average quarterback or a little higher than average, I could see the Jets making an interesting case for about a 500 record, right? 8-8, 8-9, 9-8, something like that. That's a stretch. The Jets were the worst team in football last year, and I think they're going to stay that way. But they're not going to be the worst of the worst because the Miami Dolphins, that's going to be them. I'm sorry. I don't know. I do not know what is going on in Miami. This is the weirdest thing ever. You don't release or trade away your top 2 wide receivers, which are 2, I would argue, top 20 wide receivers in the NFL prior to their injury. Prior to Tyreek's injury, I think he was a top 10 wide receiver. Yes, I know that's maybe a hot take for y'all. Jalen Waddle, I think a top 20 is valid, maybe even top 15. They basically say, yeah, we're done with you. We bring in Malik Willis, and then moments later we say, yeah, we're done with Waddle. We're done with Hill. You're going to be throwing a tutu out well and handing the ball off to Devon Achane while getting sacked every couple games. Like every couple plays. I don't know what's going on in Miami, but all I know is that they're definitely going to be in number 1 pick contention. Maybe they find their next quarterback, their franchise quarterback. Because yeah, we certainly know Tua was not that at all. But hey, I think Tua could maybe even be the next Sam Darnold, so we'll see what happens over there. But he just didn't work out in Miami. But now the 2 top dogs. This is what makes the division so weird. There's 2 bad dogs and just awful dogs, number 1 pick contention dogs. But you got then 2 teams that could arguably be 2 of the top 5 teams in the NFL. You got the Patriots and you got the Buffalo Bills. Now, both of these teams are going to definitely be in the playoffs next year unless an injury happens. Both of these teams here, I'm putting as Super Bowl contenders, and one of them I'm going to put as a Super Bowl favorite. I just really like the way both of these 2 teams play. Now, the one thing here is Buffalo has had the worst luck. They can't get over the hump. They've been to the Super Bowl 4 times. They've lost all 4. The only other team to do that is yours truly, the Minnesota Vikings. The New England Patriots have already made it to the Super Bowl with Drake May. He's going to learn from his mistakes. They were somewhat in that game. It just, I think it was Seattle's year. I'm putting the Patriots on the top. They're going to be one of my Super Bowl favorites here. I'm going to put the Buffalo Bills on Super Bowl contenders just because Buffalo has not had the best history. I think, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, both these guys, they can't seem to win playoff games in the most unlucky ways possible. I like both of them. But, still the Super Bowl contenders are really good for Josh Allen and the Bills. But can they take the next step? That's what I want to figure out. So that's why they are a Super Bowl contender, not a Super Bowl favorite. Now let's go back to the NFC. Do the other East division, the NFC East. This time you got the Eagles, you got the Cowboys, you got the Commanders, and you got the Giants. And this division is going to be loaded. In my opinion here, this division, the NFC North as always, and then the NFC South, any of those 12 teams, take away the Cardinals. Take away the Cardinals and any of those 11 teams, I think have a legitimate shot at winning their division, but also making a lengthy Super Bowl run. Yes, I said it about the Giants. The Giants have gone out and gotten John Harbaugh. Jackson Dart is now on their team. They will be having Malik Neighbors return from injury. Cam Scatabo will be returning from injury. We have no idea who they're going to take with their draft pick because they have a high draft pick. Sure, Dexter Lawrence asked for a trade, and he's going to be traded. But I think they're going to get a nice little return for him. Maybe an additional first-round pick. We'll see what happens. Their defense was still really good, effective defense last year without mastermind John Harbaugh. He's a mastermind on the offensive side and the defensive side. That the Giants, they're gonna be legit. I'm not gonna put them straight away as to 100% in. I'm gonna have them at a wildcard team, which means in this tier here, it's the lower end of the playoff contending teams. The one of the weaker wild card teams out there, but I could still see them making it, and that's where they are right now when you look at this roster on paper. Right now, we're just power ranking these teams basically on what they look like on paper because we've not seen them play a game, right? If they can stay healthy, John Harbaugh, I believe in this team and John Harbaugh as well, and I think this team's going to be legit for this upcoming season. But the other three teams, you could say the same. You got the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they're going to be 100% in. They're going to be, I think, a Super Bowl contender. You got to have them be a Super Bowl contender, a team that just won the Super Bowl 2 years ago or 2 seasons ago, right? Ultimately, 2024? Because 2025. They won 2025 because the Seahawks won 2026. So, yeah, really about a year ago. They only won about a year ago. People are kind of forgetting about that just because they had an awful performance in wild card. They got upset by the Niners. But I still think you can't drown them out. They're still going to be a Super Bowl contender. They're going to be legit. And then you got the last two people in this division. You got the Commanders, who they're going to make. They're going to make a bounce back. And I also think the Cowboys will start winning a couple games. They're working around. I wouldn't say a Max Crosby trade is out of the question, which would be insane. I'm going to say the Commanders are almost 100% in if Jaden Daniels can stay healthy. Again, there's a lot of ifs here still with injuries for all these teams just because injuries can, make or break a season, And so for me here, that's where I'm going to put these teams. I think for the Cowboys, I'm going to put them I think they're a little better than the Giants. I'm going to put them ahead of the Giants, but this is what the updated power rankings look like so far. And that's all I really got to say. Jaden Daniels, man, that injury was brutal. That was brutal to watch and to see. But now we've got only 16 teams. We've done half of them. Now we got to complete them. Here's what the power rankings look like so far. And now let's stay in the NFC and let's go to the NFC West. Yes, we're saving my division for the last division in, the NFC North because obviously it's the best division in football. But we got the NFC West now with the Super Bowl champions, the Seattle Seahawks. You also got the Rams. You got the Niners and the Cardinals. Yeah, I'm sorry, Cardinals. We're going to get this out of the way just because you don't really have any choice. I'm sorry, Cardinals. You're bad. You're one of the best of the worst. I think Jacoby Brissett is going to be interesting. We saw him do a lot of great things. Maybe they try to get another veteran quarterback come and play for them, but I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Marvin Harrison should be healthy. Trey McBride is an elite tight end, but it's just not good enough to compete, especially in the NFC. Or really even for a division spot, because the other three teams here in this division they're absolutely insane. You got the Niners, you got the Rams, and of course, let's get this out of the way, Seattle Seahawks. You gotta have them as a Super Bowl favorite, but yes, I'm gonna put the one and only Patriots above the Seattle Seahawks just because I think we could see Seattle digress a little bit. I don't think they're going to win their division. I think that's going to either be the Rams or the Niners. But I still think we see them make the playoffs. I still think we see them make the NFC Championship in a way. But that's, I'm not going to be an utter fool, right? I'm not going to be a stupid boy and say, oh, just because they won the Super Bowl, I'm going to put them at wild card. I'm not going to do that. Sam Darnold has gained my respect. JSN has been, terrific. Is now the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. And it's just, things are rolling high for Seattle. And I can't just, change it all up and give you a hot take on that. I only give hot takes with, they're realistic. They have to be kind of realistic. Putting them down there, that would not be realistic. So, Seattle, welcome back to the Super Bowl favorite club for the time being. But now we got the other two teams who I do think have a legitimate shot at winning that NFC West. I mean, the Niners, they had a chance. So did the Rams. Ultimately, they both fell short. 49ers address their biggest need. They need wide receivers. Now, the one thing is, can they stay healthy? Because that's also been another big concern. Why, they just can't get out of the first round. They can't get over the hump. It's one player or another. It's always star players getting injured. Hopefully, Warner and Bosa are back. Hopefully, Kittle's back. Purdy hopefully stays healthy. McCaffrey. I mean, I'm talking about all these teams. Like, hold on. The Niners here, look. Brock Purdy, CMC, Mike Evans now. George Kittle, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Nick Bosa. Who's stopping this team? I have a hard time thinking who, but I do think the Rams can stop them because they have Matthew Stafford, they have Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, and then also you just saw, Jared Verse, right? But they also got Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson. For me, the Rams are going to be my number one team in the NFL. They're going to be my biggest Super Bowl favorite. And then for the Niners here, the Niners, they're going to be good. They're going to be good. I think the injuries, you got to say something here. They're definitely in the third tier. I'm going to put them as a Super Bowl contender. I think I'm going to put them even over the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they have that history. I know the Eagles, I just have a feeling that the Eagles, aren't, they're going to probably win their division. I could see them winning 13 games or so. But when it comes to playoffs, who beat them last season in the playoffs? By the way, the Niners, they did not have Warner. They did not have Bosa. So if everybody's healthy, I think the Niners beat the Eagles again if they had to play them. So that ultimately gives me the over. And that ultimately gives the Niners the over the Philadelphia Eagles. Man, I can't speak today. That's all right. Appreciate everybody for rocking with me here. But yeah, the Rams, they're just amazing. They're an amazing team. And they just keep getting better each and every time. The Super Bowl's in LA this season. Things are all pointing to maybe an LA Super Bowl. That's maybe a bit. That's a reach, I would say. That's a reach. A Chargers Rams Super Bowl in LA. I highly doubt it. We're going to talk about the Chargers actually right now. That's a great transition point, Mateo. Great transition point because we're going back to the AFC, to the AFC West we go with the Chargers, the Broncos, the Chiefs, and the Raiders. Because, yes, now I get to talk a little bit about them Raiders as well and those Chiefs. Okay. This might be the year, guys. This might be the year that we've all been waiting for. I thought it was legit going to be last year, but I was wrong. We were close, but I was wrong. But I think this is going to be the year that we see the Chiefs in fourth in the AFC West. Is that a hot take? I know I keep talking about hot takes. I just love hot takes as well. I think the Broncos win the division. And I could see either the Raiders or the Chargers coming in second and the Chiefs in last. So for my power rankings here, when you look at these teams, how they're stacking up against each other, the Broncos are the most complete team. They bring in Jalen Waddle now, so Bo Nix has a true wide receiver one. They have to be a Super Bowl favorite. And I'm going to put them at 4 right now. And notice here, these 4 teams in the Super Bowl favorites, they were all in the championship games of their respective conferences a year ago. Or actually just a couple of months ago. Why was I trying to be? I was trying to be way too dramatic, and I messed up the entire thing. That's kind of funny. But yeah, the Broncos are a legit team for sure. With this addition here now that has the Bills at 5 right now, Niners 6, and the Eagles are at 7 right now. But the list is still, we're still working around it. But the Chiefs, do they just make the playoffs? No, I don't think so. I think, they're not going to have Mahomes for a good chunk of the season. Justin Fields is going to be their quarterback. Unless Andy Reid can do the impossible, Justin Fields is not a great quarterback. I think mediocre at best is what fits the Kansas City Chiefs, and that's where I'm going to put them. When you're taking a look at, as this list is coming together, there's not as many weaker teams. I'm maybe a little too optimistic, for some of these teams, but It's fine. We're so early. We're in April of 2026. The season doesn't start till September. We've got loads of time to change our opinions. This is just right after free agency, and the time is high. We got the Chargers and the Raiders are next here. I think the Chargers ultimately just missed the playoffs. I think they're kind of in between the Bucks and the Texans. They made the playoffs last year, and I feel like Justin Herbert always makes the playoffs and then chokes. But it is what it. Why do the Chargers have a Y next to their name? Is a Y just a playoff spot? Oh, clinch wild card. Got it. I was confused here. Sorry, I'm not sharing the screen. But I was confused why it had a Y because I thought Y was like clinch the division. I was like, what's going on? I don't know. But the Chargers 11-6. I think they could do that, but again, I think that here's the thing. I think the Texans make the playoffs before the Chargers do, but I think the Colts and the Jaguars also make it over the Texans. So I think, and then also we're going to talk about the AFC North in a second, which here I'm going to leave it on here, but both of these playoff races in the AFC and in the NFC are going to be super tight. It's going to be super tight. All these teams are, coming together. They're just really good teams, well structured at least on paper. But this ultimately, we gotta get to the moment y'all been waiting for, the Raiders, right? Where do I put the Raiders? I think the Raiders they're not gonna make the playoffs this year. I think they're gonna be close. I think I'm gonna have them the best team of mediocre at best. Okay. I think unless Mendoza is a Tom Brady and absolutely destroys the league in his first year, I think the Raiders win about 9 games. I think the Chiefs win about 6 or 7. No 6-7 joke intended. So the big thing here is, I'm okay with this. I'm not going to project too many wins, and obviously we're going to do that towards the start of the season, probably September, predicting the win totals and stuff. But for right now, the only thing I want to highlight is that I think it's the end of an era, and I think the Kansas City Chiefs, without Patrick Mahomes, especially without Mahomes, they maybe only win 2 games. But I think then with Patrick Mahomes, once he returns, because he's going to return from his Achilles injury at some point, I think they'll win enough games that they're going to stay just about mid, if that kind of makes sense. But now we got the 2 last divisions. It's the AFC North and the NFC North. Last season, some way, somehow, in this weird season, we had a really creepy season, really weird season. The Steelers won the division. Every other team didn't make the playoffs. I think that's going to be different. I think the Steelers and the Browns don't make the playoffs. I think the Bengals and the Ravens have a legitimate shot. I think for now, the Browns, they're going to be one of the worst. They're going to be the best of the worst, though, so far when we're talking about the bottom 5. But also, yeah, you got to see, I'm saying, oh, yeah, I'm a little, I'm maybe we're trying to feel good for the Browns. Maybe they're going to put together something. There's still a bottom 5 team when we're looking at this power ranking, and it just shows you how good this NFL is going. You're seeing this with all the leagues, though. My goodness. Like every league is definitely getting much better, which is great for the growth of the sport, which also means, more money for the NFL, which they love, but also just better games to watch. Almost every game last season you turned on and it was exciting. It was fun to watch. There weren't a lot of blowouts, which is great. I love this. I love this too. And while I'm thinking about this here, I'm going to slide the Saints down 1 to best of the worst. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that here. Try to even the playing field out just a little bit more. But for the other teams, you got the Bengals, you got the Ravens. I think they definitely are a wild card or above. I think the Bengals are going to, again, injuries is a big thing. If Burrow can stay healthy, right, that's a huge thing. But I think their defense is going to get better. For some reason, I think Trey Hendrickson was causing a big problem. That's just what I thought. And I'm actually really glad they got rid of him. I think he was just not, he was taking up too much salary, and he's a really good talent. He's a really talented player who, yes, now is going to make a Ravens team even better. And speaking of the Ravens, they're going to be a Super Bowl contender here above the Niners. They're going to be sliding, I think, to the 6th spot. Yeah, 6th spot. I'm just because I think Josh Allen's a better quarterback. I think he can lead his team a little more than Lamar Jackson can. But again, I think, and also, The Ravens have a new coach. They've had Harbaugh for years, and they're going to have to change a little bit. But I still think this Ravens team is going to be elite. You know, oh, dude, this is just really hard. I didn't realize how hard this was going to be. For the Steelers, it looks like Aaron Rodgers is going to be the quarterback again. We just don't know. But even at the end, it's going to be another mediocre season here, I think. Similar down towards the end, mediocre at best. I don't think they even just missed the playoffs. I think they're just mediocre, 8-9, 7-10, something like that. But for the Bengals, I'm gonna stay a little, upbeat for them. I'm gonna stay hyped for them, and I think they're gonna be the best of the wild card teams right here. Meaning, so they're in the fourth tier here on this tier list. So they're on the weaker end of the playoff teams. I think they're probably going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to rebound and maybe just win a couple playoff games. Maybe they upset Josh Allen yet again. Joe Burrow loves doing that, or we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think even in a tough division, Joe Burrow's going to have to face TJ Watt, Trey Hendrickson now, Myles Garrett twice technically 6 times. That's going to be a lot. I believe in Joe. I believe in Jamar. I think they're two of the best players in this league right now. I would probably defend that they were probably two of the top 15, top 10, maybe even players in the NFL, and just having them together as long as they're healthy is going to be insane. But now we got 4 teams left. It's my division. The NFC North is a loaded division. And, last season here, the Minnesota Vikings had a very interesting season. The Detroit Lions had a very interesting season. Record-wise, this whole division didn't do well in that eyes. But they are all much better than that. They all struggled with injuries. And Chicago, I think your division title was a one-time thing. I think one of these 3 teams are going to win the division. I'm not setting hopes for Kyler Murray, but I'm just super glad we don't have. It looks like Kyler Murray is going to be the starting quarterback, and I think think about what KOC did, what Kevin O'Connell has done with Sam Darnold, and I think Kyler Murray is better than Sam Darnold was when we got Sam Darnold. So imagine what Kevin O'Connell can do. I'm really looking forward to it, right? Looking forward to it a lot. Green Bay, Micah Parsons is going to be healed. He was eating it up for them. Now he's going to get to play, hopefully a full season, stay healthy. Detroit suffered injuries. They're still the Detroit we know. Now for the power ranking. With these 4 teams remain. Do I have any of them as a Super Bowl favorite? No, because there's too many question marks about each of these teams. But they're still all good. They're still all good. Let's start with the Vikings. Let's start with my Vikings. We never start with my Vikings. We always tend to end with the Vikings, but no, I'm going to start with the Vikings. For me, I think they're a low-end wildcard team. That's just what I'm saying. That is legit. Record-wise, I could see, I don't think it's going to happen because the NFC West is so good. But this is all I'm trying to communicate. One team wins the division. There are 3 wild cards. I would not be surprised if 2 of the 3 wild cards are from the NFC North. If the NFC West was not as good, I could say all 4 of these teams make the playoffs. But I'm not going to do that. I think, obviously, these 3 teams, the Rams, the Seahawks, the Niners make it. So that only leaves 1 wild card spot up. So maybe that's the Vikings. Actually, I'm going to have the Vikings just miss the playoffs. And we're going to put also same thing for the Chicago Bears. I think we beat the Chicago Bears. And then we're back to the Lions and the Green Bay Packers, number 1. 100% in, I think it's going to be the Green Bay Packers. I think they're definitely putting together the right pieces. And then a wild card team is going to be the one and only Detroit Lions. And that's kind of how I'm going to rank these teams. I think I'm happy. The one thing I'm a little interested in is because I'm just having a little concern and second thoughts on this is the Giants and the Vikings, or the Giants and the Bears. I think if we saw a game, Bears-Giants, I don't know who would win that game. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it here. I'm going to keep here. This league is quite the league. And this has been a really fun project. So I'm going to read them as normal. This is how I always close each of the NFL episodes. I always read them 1 through 32. But let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of these power rankings. What was my hottest take? Because I was just spitting hot takes out every single minute, it seems like. But here are my 1 month till the draft power rankings, if you will. But, post free agency. Excuse me. Starting at number 1, my Super Bowl favorites. You got number 1, you got the LA Rams. Number 2, you got the Patriots. Number 3, you got the Seattle Seahawks. 4 are the Broncos. 5 are the Bills. 6 are the Ravens. 7 are the 49ers. 8 are going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. 9 are the Colts. And 10 are the Washington Commanders. That's interesting how that worked out. 11 are the Packers. 12. Yes, 12 are the Panthers. Now, this is kind of where the weird thing is. I think the Lions and Bengals and Jaguars, they're probably better than the Panthers. But just the way, the Panthers get the benefit of the doubt because they're in the worst division ever. That's just kind of how it works. So at 12 are the Panthers. 13 are going to be the Lions. 14 Bengals. 15 Jaguars. 16 Cowboys, 17 Giants, 18 Vikings, just like Justin Jefferson's number. That's kind of funny. 19 Bears, 20 Texans, 21 Chargers, 22 Buccaneers, 23 Raiders, 24 Falcons, 25 Steelers, 26 Chiefs, 27 Saints, 28 Browns, 29 Cardinals, 30 are the Tennessee Titans, 31 are the New York Jets, and 32 are going to be, just based on these power rankings, the Miami Dolphins. Very interesting. I'm really intrigued. This just got me pumped up for football. We're a couple months away, but this is going to be really interesting because all of these teams really through above, tiers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The top 5 tiers, I could legit see any of those teams making. I think I could be convinced, by a fan of that team that, one of those teams from the top 5 tiers. I don't know what 20, so 3, 6, basically the top 20-ish teams could make. I think I could be convinced by by a fan from one of the teams of these top 20 teams, basically in the top 5 tiers. I could be probably convinced that you could make a playoff run because all of these teams are so good. But thank you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for watching here Inside the NFL. I know it's a longer episode, but it is what it is. Obviously, we're not doing one thing I learned, third things. That's not what we're doing. Obviously, I would speed things up here, but anyway, I'll like speed things up on a normal NFL episode. But this is just kind of the introduction to this upcoming NFL season. Can't wait to spend the rest of the NFL season with you guys starting in September. So I thought I'd just get one out there. Just kind of get you excited for football season here in April 7th, 2026. A lot more content coming out, though. Almost daily shorts. Yep, almost daily shorts here on the YouTube feed. Episodes weekly every Tuesday, every Thursday. Kingdom Competitors comes out every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern. If you don't know what that is, basically I take a look at Christian athletes, and I like to keep God at the center of everything I do. So I like to see what Christian athletes talk about and what they believe, and then I try to connected to how we can apply it to our lives, and so much more fun things like that. So that's coming out on Saturday, every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern. It actually premieres. We have an awesome community. Shout out to a couple of those guys, Millie and a couple other of those wonderful people that always chime in on Kingdom Competitors when we premiere those episodes. Check out my website if you guys want articles. Basically, I post articles out there, as well as all of these videos are on there, as well as the Spotify links and all so much more fun things to connect to you to this channel. So thank you guys so much. All of those links in the description of this video. If you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for watching. And I pray that you don't forget to keep God first, because he's the most important thing in your lives. I'll see you guys all in the next one. Have a great day. Peace.